Monday morning to everyone. I'm Jenna Wolfe alongside Nick Wright, Brandon Marshall, Kevin Wilds. And Kevin, buddy, I never feel for people who are fans of teams and their team loses, but I love you, buddy, and I really genuinely feel bad about what's going on with you. I don't feel bad for the Patriots. I feel bad for you
sent the
as
text
my
out
friend.
right away.
I sent the text out about Baker and the Browns. What I didn't do is send the text out about the Patriots. We will discuss everything today, including Knicks Chiefs. But we start this morning in Baltimore. Steelers Ravens. And this one lived up to its billing. Did it ever? Big Ben rallying the Steelers with 21 second half points to take the lead late. Then a fourth down stop, sealing the win. As you guys predicted, Ravens were able to run all day. It's that pass game for Baltimore that was pretty much a non-factor. Steelers remain now the only undefeated team at 7-0. And Brandon, let's tee off this conversation with you. Did your Steelers prove they are the best team in the NFL?
Look, it's my team. I picked them to make it to the Super Bowl. But absolutely not. And Jenna, I was surprised that the Baltimore Ravens were able to run the ball the way they did. 265 yards? Are you kidding me? That was like Amazon. That was like Amazon ground, Amazon Prime. They were able to do whatever they wanted to. They were able to drive and on the ground anywhere. And that's just unbelievable. Nick, that's your top front seven in the NFL. They're my number 2 behind the Tampa Bay Bucks. I was ready to crown them number 1, but after that, that performance, I got to keep them right there at number 2. So Jenna, you got the Kansas City Chiefs out there, Seattle Seahawks, you got Tampa Bay. So are they the best team? No, I don't think so. But that was a really good win for them. Whenever you can get an opportunity to win a nasty game, a dirty game versus a really good team, it's almost better than if you blew them out. Like, that's a character-building game, Nick.
Oh, that's interesting.
All right, so, Brandon, I want to give you 2 compliments. One I expected to give you, and one is shocking. The first one is the expected one. That is a great-looking shirt you're wearing this morning. I don't know who inspired you to wear more floral prints, but you look outstanding. The second one...
You did, buddy. You did.
Thank you very much. Your take this morning shocks me. It pleasantly shocks me.
Why?
Because you did pick the Steelers to go to the Super Bowl. You have been higher on them than anyone outside of the greater Pittsburgh area. They just got a win against a Baltimore team when Baltimore's coming off a bye. Baltimore needs the win. And the Steelers, you look at, and I know Wild's probably going to talk about this, you look at the Steelers the rest of the way, things really open up for them to look at a potential 14-2, maybe even 15-1 season. So I thought you were going to come on here this morning and say, this is the best team in the NFL. And I was going to have to say they're the second best team in the NFL. Listen, they have a great defense. They have a great Hall of Fame coach who might finally be getting his due. And they have an offense that I think is good enough. And there is no team, including the Chiefs, Wilds, that should play the Steelers and feel good about it. But because I do feel like the offense still has its limitations, and I feel like yesterday, as good as Pittsburgh was, the bigger storylines for yesterday was Baltimore's errors and, unfortunately, Baltimore losing their all-pro left tackle for the season, that I can't yet assign them pole position alongside the Chiefs or even ahead of the Chiefs. I know we only talk about the Chiefs when they don't blow people out, so they're probably not on the show today. I haven't checked the rundown. My guess is they won't be mentioned. But the Chiefs Wilds are still the best team in the NFL.
Okay, I could buy either take. I think they're both wonderful vacation destinations. You want to go here or there? I'm good with either one. But Brandon,
it's actually neither place.
The Steelers are 7-0. No, I'm just talking about you trying to choose between 2 wonderful locations. Steelers are 7-0 for the first time since your old buddy Kevin Wilds was in utero. My mom singing me songs about how great the Steelers were. It helps in mental development. So, tell me, I'm going to read off the Steelers' schedule. Where is the loss coming? I'm not saying 15-1 is on the board. I'm saying an undefeated season is on the board. At the Cowboys is a win.
Wow.
Bengals at Jacksonville. Ravens at home. You just had them. Washington, Bills, Bengals again, Colts, and Browns. 16-0 is on the board, Brandon. You buying that, or do you want that to happen?
Well, you got Baltimore again, you got the Colts, you got Buffalo, and you have the Bengals, right? Whenever you play in a division, it's always tough. These teams know each other inside and out 100%. 100%. Look how they played yesterday. This is a team that can put up points.
Got that one.
And you know, when you look at that defensive line yesterday, I want to see, can they get back on track? But the thing that stood out to me, too, and the reason why I'm not high on them today and crowning them the best and ready to put them above the Chiefs is because Lamar Jackson turns the ball over. If he doesn't turn the ball over, it's a different game, Jenna.
Right.
Well,
all right, so let's talk about Lamar's day, because it was sort of bittersweet. Never really got going through the air. Did it on the ground, but he finished with 2 picks, lost 2 fumbles. He certainly owned it, though. Here's Lamar Jackson on what went wrong yesterday.
The turnovers, I feel, is the reason we lost the game. I put that on me. The start of the game, the first drive, a pick 6. Then we drive to the red zone, a fumble. Got to get the ball out quick because we know they're dominant up front. And then a pick off the player from the flat, throwing at the mark. Got to clean those up, and I feel we won that game. So that's all to it.
All right, Brandon, you think the league has caught up to Lamar Jackson at this point?
No. So first, let's start with Lamar Jackson. He said it. Different ball game if he doesn't throw that terrible pick. And this is my buddy. I love Lamar Jackson, but I got a job to do. I got to call him out, got to hold him accountable. Those 2 picks is on him. That's on him. But no, the league has not caught up with Lamar Jackson. They owned that game. They were in control. Whenever you can put up 265 yards on the on the scoreboard, on the box sheet, then you definitely control the game. I think the league has caught up to Greg Roman, his scheme, his passing game. Oof. Like when you got to throw the ball, and I keep saying this, you got to have an identity. They have no identity in the passing game. I don't know if they're a spread team. I don't know if they're a play action team. I don't know who they are when it comes to the passing game. Lamar Jackson 100% has to clean up those turnovers, but Greg Roman, I'll continue to say this, have to develop an identity in the passing game.
Yeah. Okay, this one we disagree on. I'm not saying Greg Roman doesn't deserve any of the blame. But this is officially a flashing red warning sign for Baltimore. Lamar, I'm going to throw a few numbers at you. Lamar has played 2 games as a starter against Pittsburgh. In those 2 games, he has 5 picks and 5 fumbles. Lamar Jackson, in 2020, the calendar year, has played 3 games that really matter. They are the 3 worst games he's played. They're 0 for 3, and in those 3 games, he has 4 interceptions and 6 fumbles. That's the playoff game, the Chiefs game, and now the Steelers game. We are getting mounting evidence, Wilds, that while there might not be a single other quarterback in the whole league you want, if your team is up 10 and things are rolling, there might be 10, 12, 15 quarterbacks you'd rather have if you're going to have to throw the ball consistently down the field to get yourself back into a football game. And if I'm Baltimore, the bye is now gone. You're down a tiebreaker against Pittsburgh in 2 games. You're down a tiebreaker in a game against Kansas City. I am highly concerned about how Lamar has played in the biggest games of his career up to this point.
See, my favorite thing on the internet yesterday, Hollywood Browns, tweet and delete. Love it. Dwayne Wade, love it. Everyone who just wants to take to Twitter, you tweet something, then quickly just pull it back. It's like we never saw it. Hey, what's the problem with having soldiers? We're never using them. Okay, Brandon, we're a Hollywood Brown friend of the show. 2 targets, one of them was a touchdown. It seems to me that's a shot at Greg Roman and not at Lamar. I feel like, air it out a little bit. I don't know how you feel, but...
Yeah, I mean, listen, I feel for him. He's absolutely right. But he has to learn from guys like myself. He has to learn from his cousin, Antonio Brown. You don't do this in public. You got to learn from other guys.
Antonio Brown's
but I feel for him. 100% feel for him. He is a wide receiver. A receiver catch the ball, throw the ball. And Nick, this goes back to your point. This isn't on Lamar Jackson. You have Hollywood Brown standing there, a guy who can easily be a playmaker week in and week out, and you don't utilize him. That is about the identity of the passing game. So yes, Lamar. Right. What you said, I wish we had more time, Jen. I know we got to go, but he went 14-2 last year. He led the team. He led the team in touchdowns, and now we're saying we need to be alarmed in Baltimore over Lamar Jackson, a league MVP. Come on, please.
All right, well, I just checked, and we have like 2 more hours left. So we are going to discuss this again, Brandon. We talked about the league catching up to Lamar. What about the league catching up to Cam Newton? Another tough day for the former MVP. But why? We'll discuss next. First things first. On to Cam Newton and the Patriots. Absolutely desperate for a win up in Buffalo, and they actually came close. Patriots needing a field goal to force overtime or a touchdown to win. They would get neither because of that right there. Bills defense knocking the ball out of Cam's hands. New England loses. They are now a shocking 2-5. They've lost 4 in a row. Here's your quarterback, Cam Newton, after the loss.
I still am jeopardizing this team's success because of my lackluster performances of protecting the football. So, Coach trusts me with the ball in my hands, and I wouldn't want it any other way, and I just got to do a better job with protecting it. So, yeah.
We talk about Cam and this accountability week after week. At some point, he's going to have to do something about it and not just take the blame. So, Wilds, let me start with you as our resident Patriots fan. Did that fumble basically end the playoffs for the Patriots yesterday? Playoff chances for the Patriots?
No, it didn't. The fumble was bad, and we went to the sidelines. I was like, oh, is Cam going to start to cry? Because old KW was crying when he saw that. It was actually like a heartbreaking fumble, like no irony or no sarcasm. I really felt like sad, and you could feel like Cam was about to get a win, was about to get everything back on track, and he really felt terrible. So the good news for Cam and Patriots fan is we're still in it. We are not mathematically eliminated. And I know it's like, all right, well, that's a last-ditch effort, but it's fine. Look at the Bills schedule. Look at the Patriots schedule. We're okay. If we lose next week, I don't know what is going to happen in the show. Now, granted, we're 2-5. Not fantastic. Since 1990, 7 teams have made the playoffs at starting 2-5. Now, granted, we don't have enough time for the 137 other teams that didn't, but pay no mind. Now we got an extra playoff spot. We're doing okay. So until we're mathematically eliminated, and we give some time for Hall of Famer Julian Edelman's knee to come back because our receiving core is a little banged up, Brandon, I'm still feeling, believe it or not, slightly optimistic.
Yeah. No, listen. I feel your pain, man. I was watching that play live. And I was like, oh, no, this is the worst thing that can happen because you at least have the overtime right there in front of you. They could have easily won the game as well as we all were watching. But look, here's the deal. They're still in it, and it's not because of who they are, but it's because of who the division is. This division isn't good. Nick, I was ready to call you yesterday and say, look, I'm ready to concede that the Buffalo Bills are bad.
Are not very good.
You've been trying to convince me
no, they're not good.
all year that the Buffalo Bills aren't real. They're not contenders. And then Cam does this, and you give them a little hope, and you give them another week. This team really isn't good, but when you look at the record, they were 5-2 coming into this game, right? So they lost to a team with a good record, and Cam had the game right there at his fingertips. They didn't get it done, and they're still in it. So let's see how they bounce back next week. But this is going to be hard, Nick. This is going to be extremely hard to dig themselves out of this one.
I would love to paint an optimistic picture here, but Kevin Wildes took the cake with that. If we're talking about who's not mathematically eliminated? The Jets. Ooh. You know why? Because we're only through week 8. It's impossible to be mathematically eliminated right now.
Okay,
but
looking up.
As a wise man once said, it ain't great. It was all right there for the taking. They were either going to score the winning touchdown or kick the field goal and go into overtime, Josh Allen was looking the exact way Josh Allen has looked his entire career, except for that 1 month mirage to start this season, and the Patriots were going to be right there in it. But instead, my guy Cam fumbled. Now you're 2-5, and even if the Bills aren't good, and they're not, right now as we sit here today, what's today, November 2nd? November 2nd, 2020. I have a declaration to make. It could change, but right now, this moment, the best quarterback in the AFC East is Tua Tagovailoa. I've seen enough, as Dave Wasserman would say. Oh, really? Okay.
Because he threw for
Josh
90
Allen
yards?
stinks. No, because he's not the other three guys. Because right now, it would have been Fitzpatrick. Because the way Cam is playing, and I love Cam, the way he's playing, he's ineligible. The way Darnold has played, he's ineligible. And Josh Allen is Josh Allen. He is making himself ineligible. And so even if the Bills are coming back to the pack, you got some ground to make up on Miami. So I don't think it's over for New England. I will agree with you there. When I predicted they'd win 10 games, I predicted they'd start 4-6. So I do think the schedule does soften at the end of the year, Jenna. But right now, that was a game you had to have, and you gave it away because Cam made a crushing mistake that you just can't make.
So, Brandon, let me ask you this. How much does it surprise you that Cam Newton has been playing this way the last couple of weeks? We're going to dive into a lot later, but I got to ask, was that sort of your takeaway, that another game where Cam Newton talked all week about, I got to protect the ball, this is on me, I can't turn the ball over, and then you saw what happened there at the end?
I'm shocked because I'm going back to the beginning of the season where we were like, wow, we don't know what we're going to get out of Cam Newton. Then he comes in and he has like 15 rushes. He looks phenomenal. And then he goes into Seattle. He throws the ball around the field and he looks phenomenal. And then COVID hit. So for me, I've been chopping up the last couple weeks to COVID, but it's getting to that point now where guys in that locker room don't want to hear, oh, I am letting the team down. So that's the Cam Newton side. But also there's a Bill Belichick side. I would say that this is Bill Belichick's worst outing as a coach and a GM. He needs to come out and tell us what his plan is. Are we just building this thing up for next year, or are we really trying to compete? Because if you're really trying to compete, then you would get some guys around Cam Newton. Name their tight ends. Right. Name their wide receivers. Who is contributing? It can't all be on Cam Newton. So for me, there's more to the discussion than just Cam Newton.
Yeah. And Jenna, and one other thing, maybe don't go for a surprise onside kick right when you've tied the game and Buffalo can't move the ball.
It's fine.
That was a critical.
It's fine. I like it.
Maybe don't go for a surprise onside kick in that spot, Jenna.
All right, let's move on. Play a little drawing a blank now. Guys, what was this? Bears receiver Javon Wims ejected after this little scene took place. The fake chain snatch, punch to the head. Why punch to someone wearing a helmet? This on Saints defensive back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. A possible suspension on the board for Wims. Brandon, back to you. Bears wide receiver Javon Wims getting ejected was blank.
Personal. And this is serious. You know, there's so much emphasis around the head. There's so much emphasis around protecting guys and concussions. And this guy could easily have a concussion. And this is bad. So for me, it was personal, and he took it way too far.
So here's the thing, though. America is calling this a fake chain snatching. Au contraire, mon ami. A drive previous, Gardner-Johnson stole Wims' mouthpiece. Stole his mouthpiece, threw it on the ground. A couple plays later, Foles had to throw it off the field. Watch the tape, America. He was trying to steal the mouthpiece back. He didn't quite get it, and then he went with the old one, too. So that's what was going on there. I can't condone this behavior, but I can be entertained by it, Wilds.
I also don't condone it. Brandon, I also think there should be a suspension, not only because it's a shot to the head, but also because it had no effect. It was basically a Kobe Matt Barnes, but you actually hit the person and he still didn't move. So I would agree with a suspension.
He definitely felt it. Wow. He definitely felt that.
Didn't look
All
like
right, let's take a turn. Talk about someone else who felt it yesterday, Baker Mayfield. If only his play was as consistently good as his commercials. Another tough outing for the Browns yesterday.
Jenna.
It'll be sure to spark some fun conversation on this show. I cannot wait. We're back right after this. Stay with us.
Unfair.
Where Jenna was right. Welcome back. Raiders in Cleveland on a brutally windy day yesterday for the Browns. First game without OBJ, and his absence was noticeable. After 5 touchdowns last week, Baker could not find the end zone today. Not sure why. It's always in the same place. Finished 12 of 25, 122 yards passing. Raiders take the win, 16-6, which means Browns get the loss. Brandon, what'd you make of the Browns' offensive performance in their loss yesterday?
I mean, this is what I expected. I'm not shocked by this. I'm not surprised. Nick, are you surprised? Kevin, are you really surprised?
Ask
we
me.
drafted this guy. Before I even get into it, yeah, Jen, I already know your answer. Trust, Jen, are you surprised? Right?
Absolutely
Think
not,
about this.
Brandon.
I'm okay with old school football. Defense, running the ball, low scoring games. I'm okay with that. You got to get it done that way sometimes. But I'm not okay with being in year 3 with Baker Mayfield. We drafted you #1 overall. We drafted you for this reason. We drafted you to get the job done by any means necessary. And you haven't proved to be the guy. So for me, I'm not surprised. I want to get off this Baker train because it just seems like I'm just crushing him. And he may be a good person. I've never met Baker Mayfield. But as far as a quarterback and a football player, I don't think he's the guy. He's just not getting it done.
Brandon, let me ask you a question. Let me just throw it back to you. How many quarterbacks in this league would have played well in those conditions yesterday? How many?
Maybe 10. Maybe 10 or 12 guys. But think about look at the 2-minute drive. Mm-hmm. But look at I'm looking at the decision making. I'm looking at when the game is on the line. Derek Carr got it done. Why couldn't you get it done? Why couldn't you execute a 2-minute drive?
Okay, so the touchdown drive Carr had, the receiver almost lost control of the ball and hit the ground. It was called a touchdown. The touchdown drive Baker had, the receiver, it was an even better pass, hit Landry in the hands. Landry tried to double catch
coverage.
it, bobbled it. It got overturned.
Double coverage, got his head taken off.
No, we're talking about 2 different plays. We're talking about 2 different plays. There was the first touchdown Jarvis Landry dropped earlier in the game that was ruled a touchdown and then ended up being overturned. And then the second touchdown Jarvis Landry dropped, which was in double coverage, and then they end up missing the field goal and the game's over.
It wasn't a drop, but listen, I get what you're saying. But yes, go ahead.
Okay, well, the first one definitely was a drop. The second one hit him in the hands, and then he got hit by the safety, and he ends up losing the ball. Whether that gets graded a drop or not, it hit him in his hands.
Double coverage.
Baker didn't play well. No one would argue he played well. And the conditions were obviously awful, but you got to score more than 6 points. I did feel yesterday like, for all the folks who say, what good is Odell Beckham Jr., a guy who you can just get the ball to either in a reverse or, as you would say, a bubble screen, a guy who you don't have to throw the ball far to and can make people miss, could be useful there. But listen, Baker right now is not a top 10 quarterback. Baker right now is not a guy who can overcome those types of conditions. I don't know anyone in America who is calling him a top 10 quarterback. Now, he gets discussed as if he is because he was the #1 pick of the draft. But I saw another #1 pick of the draft yesterday, Jared Goff, look like he should have been the #1 pick of the CFL draft and might lose that job too. So to act like, well, because he's the #1 pick of the draft, we hold him to the standard. No, it's because it's Baker Mayfield. And he played terribly, and he deserves to be criticized for it, which is why it's frustrating when he plays great like he did against the Bengals. We say those games don't count. But yesterday, Wilds, he was bad. He was bad in awful conditions where everyone involved with offense or special teams was bad. And now they have a bye week, and then they have 3 very winnable games coming up after, and we'll see how they rebound.
So, Brandon, I give Baker a total pass on this. When you see field goals moving like it's like being driven by magic, maybe it's a Halloween thing, I'm like, oh, no one's moving the ball. Derek Carr didn't really move the ball. They combined for like 250 yards. So this is not going on Baker Mayfield's permanent record in my book. It's like, oh, that's the windy game. I'm not holding this against him. Have you played in games that are so windy? You're like, we can't move the ball. It is what it is. It's just the wind.
Yeah, 100%. But I played with a quarterback that could get it done. Jay Cutler, as we all knew, had a phenomenal arm. So it didn't matter the conditions. We knew going into the wind, we knew going into rain, we knew going into snow that Jay Cutler was going to get it done. He was going to rip it through there. So for me, it's less about this game. I'm talking about, can you get it done? The Oakland Raiders, Derek Carr, found a way to get it done. Why couldn't that be the Cleveland Browns and Baker Mayfield? Why do we continue to have these discussions that, they fell short? Why do we keep?
Wait a second.
No, they got it done. They got the win. We're talking about the win. That's what I'm talking about. We can't keep making excuses for him, Nick. Last week it was, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Anybody who beat the Pittsburgh Steelers is an MVP quarterback.
No.
This week is now, let's blame it on the win.
Brandon, last week it was the Bengals. But that win didn't count. If it's just about the win,
excuse me.
Then
excuse me.
So 2 weeks ago it was the Steelers.
Let's go. You're right. But I'm going back to the Steelers, and then we go to the Bengals. They came back and they played phenomenal.
Right,
and now
because
we're back to this.
skipping the wins.
Yes, you're right.
But hold on.
You're right.
But if you're going to say it's just about the wins, then when we're talking about Derek Carr's team has 4. Baker's team has 5. Well, it's
we're not
more
talking
than
about. I'm not talking about this conversation. This conversation is about Baker Mayfield. That's what it's about. I'm using this last game as an example to show that they got the win. That's what they were able to do. They did just enough to get the win. If we're going to have a defensive game, if we're going to have this old school approach, I'm fine with that. Sometimes it's like that, but you got to find a way to win. If you draft a guy #1 overall, find a way. Find a way. Don't give me an excuse about the win. Don't give me excuses about the rain, the sleet, the snow. I don't want those excuses. I want the win.
Now that's totally fair. What I do think, and I think the Wright Baker conversation in my mind is, he looks like a guy who was not worth the #1 overall pick. He looks like a guy who can be a starting quarterback in this league.
Okay, that's fair.
And can play well, but is not a franchise changer the way he looked like his rookie season. I think that is totally fair. You know what he looks like? A lot like Derek Carr. He looks a lot like Derek Carr, a guy that's going to be a league average-ish quarterback. That's what I think. That's where I think Baker Mayfield is right now. I feel like the conversation surrounding him has been skewed.
Well, say that and don't make excuses. Say that and don't make excuses for him. Let's go back to the Steelers game and you did. Go back to the Steelers game. You made an excuse for him. You went back and said,
Brandon,
this guy, I'm going back to that point because you went, that was your take. Your take was anybody that plays well against the Steelers would be an MVP candidate. And that's not true.
Correct.
Why are we doing that for Baker?
Guess what? Because we just saw the literal MVP have 4 turnovers against the Steelers. So thank you. But then exactly. The point was that the Steelers are going to make a lot of people look bad. The whole point, hold on a second. The point was the Steelers are going to make a lot of people look bad. Just like the Bengals evidently are going to make a lot of people look good. And now yesterday, Baker didn't play well. I don't think it's an excuse to say it was hurricane force winds. I am able to be critical of him. But you can't evaluate these games in a vacuum where the conditions and those things have no application. Derek Carr did not in any way, shape, or form play a better or worse game than Baker Mayfield yesterday. Now, his team won, so he gets the check mark there, but I am sitting here telling you definitively.
Let's go back in time. Let's go back in time and you draft him with everything you've seen. Let's go back and draft him #1 overall. So you want to talk about Lamar Jackson, the whole conversation about Lamar Jackson. What I said, you want to say look bad. That to me, it's more on Greg Roman than it is Lamar Jackson. There's no identity in the passing game. So if we want to peel back these layers and continue to have these conversations, then it's going to take an hour because Lamar Jackson Jackson, yes, we know how he gets it done. Prolific in the run game. Why isn't he developing the passing game? Is it Lamar Jackson? No, Lamar Jackson's more than capable. That's not typical for him to go into a game and turn the ball over. But he's pressing because Greg Roman is not developing the passing game.
But that's fine. But the point that I was trying to lead to is, if the score of this game had been the exact same, 16-6, but the Browns had won, and Baker had the 112 yards passing that Derek Carr had, maybe I'm wrong. It's a guess, but I'm guessing
well,
not
you know
a lot
what?
of folks.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal.
Brandon, let me finish the point. Brandon, let me finish the point.
I'm done arguing over average quarterback. Why are we having this discussion? We're talking about Baker Mayfield. Like, why are we going back and forth? You're trying to defend Baker Mayfield.
I'm trying to be honest and fair about the discussion.
I'm going to jump in here before we get to a commercial break.
Honest and fair about Baker Mayfield. There's nothing to be fair about. You want to talk about the win.
We will have much more on this game, including where Odell fits into all this coming up. On the other side, we're going to talk about Lamar, if he was to blame for the Ravens' loss. That's next. Stick around. It's getting hot and fun in here. On Thursday, Aaron Rodgers leads the NFC North, leading Packers against the 49ers. That all starts at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific on Fox NFL Network and streaming on Prime Video. And we're going to get to what happened to those Packers in just a second. But back to the big game in Baltimore. Steelers, Ravens, and this one certainly lived up to the hype. You guys predicted it. Ravens able to run it all day. It's the pass game that was the non-factor. Lamar with 2 picks and 2 lost fumbles. As the Steelers get the win, they remain the only undefeated team at 7-0. But here is Lamar Jackson on what went wrong yesterday.
The turnovers, I feel, is the reason we lost the game. I put that on me. The start of the game, the first drive, a pick 6. Then we drive to the red zone, a fumble. Got to get the ball out quick because we know they're dominant up front. And then a pick off the player from the flat, throwing at the mark. Got to clean those up, and I feel we won that game. So that's all to it.
If we only did the last 4 different things, we would have won. Michael Vick joining us now. Michael, good morning. Thanks for being with us. Let me ask you this. Do you think the league has finally caught up to Lamar Jackson?
No, I don't think the league will ever catch up with Lamar Jackson. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers got very fortunate yesterday. Mike Tomlin takes advantage of games like this when he has a lot of time to study for a guy like Lamar Jackson and his scheme. He probably put a lot of time into it. I know he did put a lot of time into stopping what Lamar Jackson was going to do to him yesterday. And, I don't think that if this was any other team, the Baltimore Ravens win. But, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're strong on defense. Mike Tomlin builds a scheme that can stop, any type of run scheme. And that's what the Baltimore Ravens hang their hat on. So, it was. I knew it was going to be a difficult game for Lamar. I think he stated the obvious in his post-game press conference that the turnovers played a key factor. We don't have to get into that. Anytime you turn the ball over, you got to make it up. And when you throw pick 6s to the house, it's just hard to overcome that. But I think in the end, the scheme that the Pittsburgh Steelers run obviously makes it tough for Lamar Jackson. And they knew what they was getting coming into this game. A tough Pittsburgh Steelers defense that was going to do everything they could to stop the run.
Yeah, Mike, I think that Lamar did a good job of owning his mistakes. You can never turn the ball over the way he did and expect to win. We know who this Pittsburgh Steelers defense is. They're a zone blitzing team. They confuse a lot of quarterbacks. But I think this is more on Greg Roman than it is Lamar Jackson. What they asked this quarterback to do since he's been in the NFL is hand the ball off, run the ball, then play action. Like, that's what makes them good. If you go back and watch all the games that they've won, that's what they do. But when they're losing and they're behind and they have to spread the ball out and throw it, a lot of people ask, well, why does this guy look this way? Well, because he's not being developed. Because there's no identity in the passing game. I love Greg Roman as a play caller, but he has to overcome this thing that he has with Lamar Jackson and a lot of his players where they put them in a box, say, this is what we're going to do well. Well, you also have to game plan and build a system for when things aren't going well. Sometimes we need to go and spread. I don't know if they're getting enough reps in practice to develop this side of Lamar and this passing game. And then another thing you got to look at is the personnel. Like, who's out there really like, this is the guy, dominant number one. I like Hollywood Brown, but is he the guy that can move the chains drive after drive after drive? So I love Lamar Jackson taking ownership in his mistakes. He got to be better. If he doesn't throw those 2 picks, they win the game. But Greg Roman has to develop this passing game.
And those 2 picks, the first one came at 0-0, start the game. Second straight week, the Steelers have started the game with a pick 6. And the second one came first drive of the second half when Baltimore was up 17-7. So it wasn't even in a situation where, like, Pittsburgh knew they were going to pass. They were bad mistakes by Lamar. And then Lamar's fumble when they were trying to come back at the end, obviously, was a killer. I don't think the league has caught up to Lamar. If I were a Baltimore fan, though, I would be highly concerned that the best teams have. This graphic I'm about to show you is jarring, and I don't know what the workaround of it is. Just take us from Lamar's first playoff game to right now. 6 games, either in the playoffs against the Chiefs or against the other best team in your division, the Steelers. 1-5, 13 turnovers in those 6 games. In the other 18 games, 17-1, 52-7 touchdown to turnover ratio, and the passer rating is damn near double. That graphic right there would terrify me, Wilds, because we know that Lamar can cause absolute mayhem for any team that is not the upper crust of the league. He can make professionals look like collegiate kids. We've seen him do it since the first start when he took over from Flacco in 2018. But his record right now in the biggest spots against the best teams, and not just the win-loss record, but his actual statistical record, is highly concerning, especially when you put it up against the nearly flawless win-loss record and statistical record against everybody else. Sure.
But don't you think the Steelers are getting the short end of the stick here, the Steelers defense? Brandon, you're America's #1 Steelers fan, and you came on at the beginning of the show, you're like, probably downgrading the Steelers. Lamar's giving the ball away. I feel like the Steelers defense, Mike, needs some credit. Lamar's not just handing them the ball, they're forcing these turnovers. Unless I'm reading it in a different way where you see it as like, no, those are all Lamar. I thought they were great plays by the Steelers defense.
Absolutely. That's what I was saying. I reiterated again. The Steelers scheme and Mike Tomlin and the way he's built this defense and having a chance to watch the Baltimore Ravens over the last 2 years and what they like to do, they're not going to get away from what they do. They won't deviate from that. If anything, they might add a little wrinkle here and there. But they're going to pretty much do what's worked and what's been successful for them. And they, like I said, things may look different, but for the most part, they just got to line up and play their defense. And that's what they hang their hat on. So, you know, it was mano a mano, us versus you, and we'll get it. We show y'all we can get it done. And that's what happened. So, you know, the Steelers get up for these type of games, man. Trust me, I know I've been in that locker room.
100%. But Wild, when I look at this pick here, what I see is Lamar just, like, that's just a bad throw. That's a bad decision. It's not like they were out schemed here where, you know, he came back to a second or third read and he just quickly threw it and he didn't see the guy. Right. Like that first one is, to me, he's like, I wish I had that one back. Yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers are known for their zone blitzing defense and confusing the quarterback. But at the same time, when you look at how Lamar played and the decisions he made in those moments, I think that's more about him than it is the defense.
Okay.
It hurt the team.
Brandon, I got
a
question. I got a question for you, Brandon. After Lamar's unanimous MVP season and then the playoff game going the way it went, I think everyone kind of knew in the regular season there were going to be very few big moments for Lamar. that it was almost assuredly going to be, whether he duplicated his MVP season or not, he was going to be graded on how he plays in the postseason. And that is still yet to be seen. But if you were going to kind of underline a few games on the schedule, the game against the Chiefs, and then, as it turned out, the game against the undefeated Steelers would be the two you underlined. Yeah. What's your level of concern for the Ravens offense as a whole, whether it's Lamar, Greg Roman, a combination, whatever it is, that in those two biggest games since the playoff letdown, they've looked the way they've looked?
A 10. Because the standard there in Baltimore and the goal in there for the Baltimore Ravens is to win a Super Bowl. They're not built to win a Super Bowl because of the offense. Like, you're asking Lamar to run two different offenses, different times of the game. What makes them successful is this running offense, play action. But then you're asking them to go into spread. Our offense with Coach Shanahan out in Denver, we ran a very simple offense, West Coast. So we went eye right, eye left, very simple. We went stretch right, stretch left, play action right, play action left. That was our offense. You never saw us in 5 wide. That wasn't our identity. So it's very confusing to really ask a guy to run two different type of offenses in different moments of the game. And it's only when they're behind. So he's only getting a few reps at this. So yes, Lamar needs to continue to develop, but Greg Roman needs to too. There's two sides to this, and we got to make sure it's a balanced conversation, because Lamar Jackson, there's no doubt in my mind that this guy can get it done. Whenever you lead the league in touchdowns, you can play. And then also, you look at his last 3 years, he protects the ball. He's not a guy that throws 2-3 picks over and over again. He protects the football. So that tells me he is more than capable of getting it done. That tells me he is more than capable of being a quarterback with high IQ.
Well, yesterday the Steelers took full advantage. They get the win. They are undefeated. They are 7-0. Take a turn, talk some Patriots. Another loss yesterday, more finger pointing. And the question few thought we'd be asking, are we ever going to see vintage Cam Newton again? We'll talk about that on the other side. First things first. Let's head up to Buffalo. Cam Newton and the Patriots desperate for a win with the game winding down, needing a field goal to force overtime. Cam coughs up the ball. Remember, he's been saying all week long that his goal was ball security. So New England loses to the Bills. They've lost 4 in a row. The record is now 2-5 in the AFC East. Here's Cam Newton after yesterday's loss.
I still am jeopardizing this team's success because of my lackluster performances of protecting the football. So, Coach trusts me with the ball in my hands, and I wouldn't want it any other way, and I just got to do a better job with protecting it. So, yeah.
All right, Mike Vick back with us now. Mike, why do you think the Cam Newton, Bill Belichick experiment has been so unsuccessful so far this season? I don't know if anyone thought it would be perfect, but I don't think anyone thought it would be sort of this disastrous at this point.
I just think this answer has so many moving parts. Once again, in Cam's press conference, there's another post-game press conference where you have a guy owning up to his mistakes and keeping it real. Like, not to continue to say the same things or beat a dead horse, but I'm gonna just say it because I hate saying it all the time because it's the obvious in football. You can't turn the ball over. I think that last play where Cam turned the ball over was the moment that he really needed for his confidence. But over the last 3 or 4 games, it was just too many turnovers. It was too many takeaways. They're not getting takeaways on defense, and then they're giving it away. And you just can't overcome that. Early in the year, that wasn't the case. And now, it just looks completely different. The team looks, sort of, discombobulated at times. And the offense just don't look the same. And, the defensive coordinators on the other side, they watch film too. They watch it all week. They watch the game plan for you and to stop you ultimately. And if you make their job easier by giving it away, then it's just going to make it harder on your end. So it's so many moving parts to this, man. Cam don't have any weapons. I could go on and on. I think, at some point, you might have to sit Cam down and then, let him think about it and see if you can get a spark elsewhere.
Wow.
Yeah, Mike, I feel for Cam. I was watching that game and, literally saw that play live just like a lot of us. And I was like, man, that was a big moment for him. That could be a moment that really broke him and this team. But then this morning, I wanted to go back and just watch the film. I was like, let me see what's going on. Is Josh McDaniels a part of it? How did the O-line play? What did they do defensively? And I really saw the same thing on both sides, on the Buffalo side and the New England Patriots side. I saw two teams that was trying to protect their struggling quarterbacks. This was a game where nothing special was happening. This was, let's focus on the run and get through this game and try to win it at the end. That's why this moment was so big, because the game plan worked perfectly. They got down there with little time on the clock, and they could have taken the game, and Cam fumbled the ball. Like, that was perfect. But there was nothing special happening because they weren't throwing the ball around. Hell, there's nobody to throw the ball to, and that's just another part of the conversation. It's like, yeah, Cam is playing bad. And when I look at it, I want to chop it up to COVID, because before COVID hit, we were all saying, man, Cam, are they going to pay Cam before the season end? Can he potentially sneak into the MVP conversation? And then COVID hit and just totally imploded this team. But now when you look at it, they're struggling, but also you got to hold Bill Belichick accountable. Like, who do they have? They don't have any tight ends. They don't have any pass catchers. So you can't put it all on Cam and expect him to carry this team all the way through the playoffs. Bill Belichick, Nick, has to stand up and tell us what his plan is, because I don't know if he's trying to win or if he's just trying to get through the season and get a high pick.
Well, 2-5 is a group failure, right? So you mentioned Belichick with the roster building. I'll throw another thing on Belichick's plate. The Patriots had to be feeling great when they were down 8, get the touchdown. Cam makes his best play of the day, the 2-point conversion. Buffalo could not move the football. And then inexplicably, they go surprise onside kick and give Buffalo life. Before you know it, Stephon Diggs takes an 8-yard pass, 40 yards, and now you're trailing 7 again. So that piece of the pie is on Belichick. 7 games this year. You know how many first quarter points the Patriots offense has scored? 0.
Yeah.
Not even a field goal in the first quarter. Yep. Part of that's on Josh McDaniels and those scripted opening 15 plays. But despite all that, the Patriots were in position to win this football game. At the very least, forced overtime, if not win the game right there, if Cam holds on to the football. And you can see the play. You see what's happening. Cam is looking at the guy right in front of him, figuring out if he's going to go down or try to make that guy miss. And the defensive end, credit to him for not giving up on the play, comes around from the side and strips it from him. But Cam is too big and too strong and, more importantly, too experienced to not know the only thing in that spot you can't do is turn the ball over. You're not down 4. You're down 3. A touchdown would be great, but you don't have to have one. And so, Wilds, I think the Patriots to make the playoffs. I don't believe in the Bills. And if the Patriots had won yesterday, I'd be feeling great about that pick. But with the loss, and by the way, with Miami also winning, that mountain just became incredibly steep with almost no margin of error the rest of the way, Wilds.
Yeah, I'm still a believer. Maybe like erroneously still, but I'm still believing. Until my phone starts lighting up that Gilmore has been traded, I actually would like to see some activity from the Patriots, that we start getting some guys, because I think you guys are right that we probably don't have enough weapons. Nick, I didn't mind the onside kick because, like Brandon said, the game was so boring. I was like, let's just do something, give some sort of spark. But I'm here to tell you, if you look at the Bills schedule and you look at the Patriots schedule, you got to Patriots can win a few games here. Do I believe in the mighty, mighty Dolphins and Tua's 93 yards a game? Nah, not really, although I do love Brian Flores. And Mike, the question for you is this about Cam. Do you think on that last possession, where I thought he was going to honestly go over to the sidelines and start crying, and he could have joined me on my couch, do you think that Cam is pressing too much? That he's trying to make it all happen? Because there's an element of Josh McDaniels' play calling. It reminds me of probably what Derrick Henry's high school coach was saying. Like, you know what? Let's just run the ball. Let's give it to our star player and run because we've got nothing else going on.
Yeah, as a running quarterback, I dealt with that before. Wanting to be cautious and protect the football and go into the game. I'm not going to throw interceptions. I'm not going to fumble. We lost the game last week because I put the ball on the ground twice. I can vividly remember a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers where I fumbled twice, cost us the game. And the next week, I'm just so overly conscious about not fumbling, and then now I'm fumbling. You know, it happens, man. As a quarterback, dual threat quarterback, you know, because you put yourself in a lot of vulnerable situations, you got to, take care of that responsibility when you're in traffic. And if you don't, then you have plays like this. But, you know, subconsciously you think about it, and then it becomes the reality when it does happen. And you're like, man, I focused on that all week. And you just have to go out and play. You can't go out there and worry about turning the ball over. You got to go out and just let it all go.
And Belichick was asked afterwards about who the starting quarterback would be moving forward, and he said, Cam's our guy. So we'll see. Time for drawing a blank. Tua Tagovailoa picked up his first win in his first start yesterday, thanks in, how shall I put it, gigantic part to the Dolphins defense. Tua finished with just 12 completions for 93 yards and 1 touchdown, but he got the win. The first lefty quarterback to win a game since a guy by the name of Michael Vick. Mike, Tua's first career win was blank.
Yeah, baby. Humbling.
Yeah, baby.
You know, to go out there and face Aaron Donald in your first game of your life in the NFL, and your first debut, is not an easy thing to do. And then, you know, fortunately for him, he got some help from the defense, but he'll never forget this experience because he went up against the best of the best, and he conquered. So, you know, it was a humbling experience for the kid.
Good stuff. Hey, take a turn. Why does it feel like it's always one step forward, one step back for Baker Mayfield? It's another tough day for the Browns quarterback. Another tough day for the Browns in windy Cleveland. That's next. Stay with us. First things first.
Too windy.
Talk some Packers and Vikings. Some called this a mismatch. The Vikings disagreed. Despite a monster game out of Aaron Rodgers, 291 yards, 3 touchdowns, Green Bay could not stop Dalvin Cook, and that was the difference. Dalvin Cook on fire. 226 total yards, 4 touchdowns for the do-everything running back as the Vikings shocked the Packers. This one at Lambeau, by the way, a 28-22 win. Mike Vick back with us now. Mike, you surprised Aaron Rodgers and the Pack lost to the last place Minnesota Vikings yesterday?
Very surprised, but I know in the NFL on any given Sunday, Monday, Thursday, like we always say, you can lose, and you gotta go out and earn it. You gotta put forth your best effort and pull out games. Nothing's gonna be given to you. But if I'm the Green Bay Packers, I got to look at my defense overall and say, what are we lacking? What are we missing? Because to give up 163 rush yards to Dalvin Cook, even though he's a dynamic player, you still got to find ways to combat that because teams are going to be looking to run the football against you for the rest of the season, you know, the best way they can. And before the trade deadline, I would be trying to find a run stopper, somebody that I can plug in the middle and help out, you know, in the run game, in defensive run game. And if you can't do that, it's going to be a long, miserable season for you. And Aaron Rodgers is going to spend a lot of time on the sideline watching the clock tick down as opposed to being on the field generating offense. So they got to find a run stopper somewhere because right now that's the Achilles heel for this team. It's been that way for the last 3 years.
Yeah, Mike, I absolutely surprised, you know, what's going on in Green Bay. But when you look at the box score and you see the rushing stats, and then you see 5.1 yards a carry, then you realize how they lost this game. If you run the ball this way, you're probably going to win 90% of your games. When you can dominate a team up front, it's demoralizing. And that's what Minnesota did. They went to Green Bay and they just handed them their lunch. They took their lunch. So when you look at this, yeah, there's so many conversations we can have. You can also talk about what's going on that offensive side with Aaron Rodgers. What happened? What's going on? But defensively, like Mike, like you said, that's the biggest question mark. There's no way you can win and win consistently in the National Football League giving up that many yards from scrimmage. You can't do it.
All right, Brandon, 2 points here. One is I have to start with an apology. America, on Thursday, I told you to take the Packers in a teaser. And that ended terribly. The only way I can show how repentant I am is, trust me, it cost me too. I am shocked the Vikings won that game, but maybe I shouldn't be because of these following numbers. Follow me here. 0 pass attempts, 23 carries, 2 catches, 13 tackles, 0 offensive line snaps played. That is the combined season-long contribution of the 2020 Green Bay Packers draft class. And America, while we were all saying, why'd you draft a backup quarterback? Well, right after that, they drafted a 3rd-string running back. And right after that, they drafted an H-back tight end. And right after that, they drafted an offensive lineman who's on the practice squad and a linebacker who can't play. Hey, you know who maybe would help that run defense, Mike Vick? Patrick Queen. He's playing pretty well in Baltimore. You know who might help that defense? Willie Gay. He's playing pretty well, a 2nd-round pick taken after A.J. Dillon in Kansas City. The Packers, we focused on the wide receiver and the quarterback. Last year, why could they not beat the Niners? Because the Niners were bigger and tougher and stronger, and they couldn't stop the run. This year, the Bucs beat them up because they were bigger and stronger. And Wilds, Dalvin Cook just ate like Zeke in his heyday on them, and they had no answers. And part of that is because they are getting less contribution from this year's draft class than any team in football, Kevin Wilds.
But Nick, what do you want them to do? I know that we like to bang on the Packers draft class and drafting Jordan Love, but you want them to go out and make like major moves right now, or we just want to keep complaining about their draft class? Because if they don't go out and make a major move, it feels like Aaron Rodgers wants some offensive help. Then I still think they're a very good team. But I don't think they're
just
like,
added up.
I think
the Steelers
they're bemoaning more. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the teams that think they can win the Super Bowl are making moves. Yannick Ngakoue just got moved. Carlos Dunlap just got moved. Overnight, the Steelers added linebacker from the Jets for a 6th or 7th round pick. That guy, by the way, goes from 0-7 to 7-0. Bully for him. So teams that think they can win, Vic, they're making moves. They are trying to supplement their team, Jenna. And so, to me, that's a big problem for the Green Bay Packers right now, and it started back at the draft.
All right, Nick, let's move on to yesterday's Baltimore Steelers, Ravens, and this one lived up to its billing. Pittsburgh rallied 21 second-half points to take the late lead, then a 4th down stop to seal the win for Pittsburgh. Steelers now remain the only undefeated team in the NFL at 7-0. Mike, Steelers proved they're the best team in the NFL by beating the Ravens yesterday?
They certainly proved they're one of the best teams. I think they're so well-rounded on both sides of the ball. There's nothing that they can't do. And I'm extremely happy for Big Ben Roethlisberger being back, looking like he's having fun and total control. And you can just tell that this team feeds off his energy. So if you look at the remaining schedule for this team, barring 1 or 2 games, and if they want to play Ben in week 14, 15, 16, after they done clinch, this team could go 16-0 if you look at the schedule.
There we go, Mike.
Nah, that's a wild point.
Man, I picked the Steelers to win the Super Bowl, to go to the Super Bowl, excuse me. But they did not prove that they're the best team. They have a lot of work to do if they want to dethrone, Nick, your Kansas City Chiefs. Also, you have the Seattle Seahawks out there who's playing really well, just got back on track, and also the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So are they the best team? I don't think so. But yesterday was a good win because it was a gritty win. It was nasty. It was ugly. And sometimes those wins are better than going in there and blowing out any other team. So I like what they did as far as how they got the win, but they didn't do anything exceptionally well yesterday. They didn't throw the ball exceptionally well. They didn't run the ball exceptionally well. And even on the defensive side, the thing that they do well, they didn't do well yesterday. They gave up how many yards on the ground? That was bad. This is one of the best front sevens in the NFL, and they just got
but Brandon, that was against one of the best run teams in the NFL too. So I expected a little give and take right there.
Brandon, I think you've got a long career in sports media, but you have a very short career as being a publicist for the Steelers, who are now 7-0 for the first time since 1978. You picked them to go to the Super Bowl, and your big takeaway is the Steelers aren't that good. They're not pretty much good at anything. I'm out on the Steelers, by the way, to the Super Bowl. Mike, you mentioned it, and then we'll go to you, Nick. Well, no, I'm just saying. Their last 3 games for the Steelers, Bengals, Colts, Browns. If they have the division clinched, locked up, Big Ben's an old man. Who knows how that surgically repaired arm and shoulder is working? Do you think they should go for 16-0 or rest them like Lamar last year?
Getting ahead
You
of
sit
ourselves.
Big Ben down. Mason Rudolph getting some real quality reps right now from the sideline. He should be vicariously learning. So he'll be ready for those last 3. He should be. But no Big Ben out there at the end of the season. We leave Big Ben on the sideline
Even
to the playoffs for that
Oh,
run.
my gosh. Okay, all right. Everyone take a deep breath. Okay?
16-0.
First, I want to give props to everyone. Take a deep breath, a deep cleansing breath. First, I want to give Brandon props because even though he's not pimping his own take, I'll do it for him. He's the only person I knew outside of the greater Pittsburgh area that picked the Steelers to go to the Super Bowl. They just had their best win of the year, and Brandon's pointing out the flaws. It's baffling to me. Brandon, you got to promote your own picks better. That's first of all. Second of all, 16-0 is not going to happen. But even if they're 15-0, I don't know that they would even be in position to rest people because the actual best team in football might be 14-1 at that point in the Kansas City Chiefs. And so to answer Jenna's question, we're in a position right now in the NFL, Jenna, that is very similar to the position the NBA has been in the entirety of the last decade, which is we know who the best is, so the debate is about who the second best is. And sometimes you get a trophy for that. In the NBA, very often you get an MVP trophy, even though we know the best player is LeBron. We know the best team's the Chiefs. Everyone knows the best team's the Chiefs. You know how I know the Chiefs must have played great this week? Because they're not being mentioned on the show one time. And so that's the standard they're at. I will say this about Pittsburgh, though.
They played the Jets.
I do think they are the closest competition to the Chiefs in the league by far. They have a top 3 coach, a top 3 defense, and an offense that has the ability to be excellent, even if it's not consistently excellent. So I think the Steelers are a great team, and there's no shame in being the second best team in the league in 2020, Jenna.
Yes, yeah. The Steelers.
All right, let's move it on.
Steelers beat the Ravens. The
Play
Chiefs
a little
beat the Jets.
drawing a blank. Bears receiver Javon Wims was ejected after this little scene took place. What appeared to be a fake chain snatch, punch to the head with the helmet on, the old punch you in the head with your helmet on Saints defensive back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. So suspension is on the board for Wims. Mike, want to ask you, Bears wide receiver Javon Wims getting ejected for the punch was blank.
Absurd. Like, this man is crazy. Like, why would you attempt to hit a man with a helmet on like this and risk injuring yourself? Like, I don't know why you would. Like, this is not even, to me, fighting on the football field should be non-existent. Like, you accomplished nothing because those same 2 guys to see each other outside of that locker room, and it wouldn't be an issue. So, you know, I've seen plenty of guys get tough on the football field and outside of the locker room, big softies.
Like idiots who punch walls. Go ahead, Nick, what's wrong?
Big softies, Vic.
Everybody except Brandon.
All right. Michael Vick.
That's a good one.
Thank you so much. Lamar Jackson continues to struggle in the passing game. How bad was it yesterday? We'll talk more Ravens, Steelers next. Again, Mike, thank you.
Thank you.
For stories to start your morning, sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve. Steelers, Ravens, 2 of the best teams in the league facing off yesterday. It was a close one most of the day. Lamar had the run game going, but once again struggled through the air. Started this game by throwing a pick 6. Finished the game with 2 picks, lost 2 fumbles as well. Steelers get the win. They remain undefeated at 7-0. But here's the losing quarterback, Lamar Jackson, on what went wrong yesterday.
The turnovers, I feel, is the reason we lost the game. I put that on me. The start of the game, the first drive, a pick 6. Then we drive to the red zone, a fumble. Got to get the ball out quick because we know they're dominant up front. And then a pick off the player from the flat, throwing at the mark. Got to clean those up, and I feel we won that game. So that's all to it.
Brandon, what do you think? You think the league has perhaps caught up to Lamar Jackson at this point?
No, I think the league has caught up to Greg Roman. To me, this is all on the coach. When you have a quarterback in 2.5 years throw 54 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, to me, that tells me that my quarterback is more than capable. We see so many quarterbacks enter into the NFL and struggle. They struggle reading coverage. They struggle getting the win. They just struggle going through their offense. This tells me that this guy is smart, but he needs to be developed. And why do I say that? Because on the offensive side, they have created an identity for success, and that's running the ball. They're one of the best in the league at running the ball with their running backs and their quarterback. Play action. When the running game is great, everything is awesome. Guys are wide open down the field. But when you're in these gritty games, or if you're behind, you have no identity in the passing game because they did a phenomenal job of answering the question like, okay, who's Lamar Jackson? Can he throw it in the NFL? So let's cater to what he does best. And they built this offense around that. But they did not build this offense to be able to teach him how to go through progressions when the game is just wide open. I got 5 wides. I got 4 wides, 1 tight end. What do I do? They're not doing that enough. And to me, I've been saying it for weeks, that's on Greg Roman. He's more than capable as a play caller. He's one of the best in the NFL. Now he needs to step outside himself and say, you know what? I have my quarterback. Numbers don't lie. Now let me make sure I can open it up a little bit more and challenge him, Nick. That's what I believe needs to happen if this team wants to go from really good to great and compete with the Chiefs and the Steelers week in and week out.
Yep. Well, listen, I don't know if the league has caught up. In fact, I know the league has not caught up to Lamar, or if we want to call it Lamar and the Ravens offense at large. But the best teams in the league might have. Yep. And whether how you want to divvy up the share of blame on that is arguable. But since Lamar played his first playoff game, the 6 biggest games he's played, they're 1-5 in the playoffs against Kansas City, against Pittsburgh. And he has 8 touchdowns to 13 picks. In the other 18 games, he's 17-1 with 52 total touchdowns and 7 turnovers. I shouldn't have said picks. Those are turnovers because that includes lost fumbles. So I'm going to once again use a cross-sport comp, Wilds. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. This has a lot of shades of Giannis to me. No one can deny the numbers. And do you want to call Giannis's postseason kind of missteps more on Budenholzer and that style, more on Giannis, or all of the above? So be it. But there might be no player in the league I'd rather have on my team against an average team than Giannis or Lamar. But against the best teams, there might be a handful of players. And for Lamar, Wilds,
can't have this debate.
He now has to prove. Say it again, Brandon.
You can't. We can't even compare the two. Basketball, one guy can dictate the success of the entire organization. In football, it takes 11 on offense, 11 on defense. We can't have the debate. I see what you're saying, but it's so much more to it. Play caller. Does he have wide receivers? Name me the wide receiver or tight end that he has that can beat one-on-one coverage over and over and over again. I like Hollywood Brown, but I don't see the guy on that roster.
And that's totally fair. But the reason it's concerning, at least to me, is because that's the roster has not changed. When I show those 2 numbers, he has the same tight ends, the same receivers. And for one reason or another, he is and the offense, if we want to make it more than just about Lamar, and I totally agree with you about the IQ point, and I think that gets underrated with Lamar, against the vast majority of the league, this team and this offense is unstoppable. But in the playoffs or against the 2 best teams in the AFC, this team is imminently stoppable. And that, to me, Wilds, is incredibly concerning if you're a Ravens fan.
Yeah, Katana, can we put up Nick's graphic one more time? Because, Nick, I actually think you're painting too rosy of a picture about Lamar against the rest of the league. And Brandon, he's 19th in passer rating. He's behind Gardner Minshew. He's 27th in yards. He's behind Daniel Jones. So I know they were able to run the ball yesterday, but he's not airing it out. And that's where I saw if we had this tweet from Hollywood Brown, where he's like, hey, if you got soldiers, what's the point of not using them? He had 2 targets. He had one touchdown. So I think there's some frustration, it seems, that he later deleted it. So I don't know if that counts. I guess we were supposed to strike that from the record.
Still
but to
counts.
me, there feels to be some frustration. It's not at Lamar. It's probably at Greg Roman, I assume.
So yes, all right. The Hollywood Brown thing is one thing. As a wide receiver, look, Hollywood, quick advice. Don't do that publicly. Learn from me. Learn from your cousin Antonio Brown. You know, I feel you valid. You're a receiver. Your job is to catch the ball. But let's go back to Lamar really quick. 54 touchdown career. 2.5 years, 54 touchdowns, led the league in touchdowns last year, league MVP, 13 interceptions, 102 passer rating over his career. This dude can get it done. And it's not like I'm trying to, to me, it's about them actually going to the next level. And the way they built this thing was, okay, there's some question marks around Lamar Jackson. So let's build an offense that suits his skill set best. Great job, Greg Roman. But now it's time to go to another level. These guys are mature. Lamar Jackson has shown you that he can throw the ball. So now you need to make him uncomfortable in practice. Let's go into 5 wide. Let's go into 4 wide. Maybe they're doing it, but they're not showing this every Sunday. So that's why I say it's more on Greg Roman, because this guy has shown you that he can play in this league. Now develop it. He has 2 different identities when it comes to offense. There's the run game, misdirection, and all the cute stuff that they do there, and they do it well. And then they go in the spread when they need it, and then they look just disconnected. So I think this is more on Greg Roman, but they can get this job done if they want to go from good to great.
All right, again, one of the headlines, Steelers now 7-0 after a win over the Ravens. The other headline, what happened to the Patriots yesterday? Up in Buffalo, desperate for a win, needing a late field goal to force overtime with the Bills. But instead, that Buffalo D knocking the ball out of Cam Newton's hands. New England loses. They're now a shocking 2-5 after dropping their 4th straight. Here's Cam after the loss.
You know, I still am jeopardizing this team's success because of my lackluster performances of protecting the football. So, you know, Coach trusts me with the ball in my hands, and I wouldn't want it any other way, and I just got to do a better job with protecting it. So, yeah.
So, Wilds, let me ask you, why do you think this Cam-Belichick experiment has been so unsuccessful so far this season?
Because he fumbled the ball. That's it. If he held on to the ball and we win the game, everything is different. Now, granted, our play call, it's true. Like all of a sudden, it's like open season on the Patriots because he fumbled the ball. And if he bounced it in the end zone against Seattle, we would have 2 extra wins. Like, look, it was an ugly game, but I wanted to come out with an ugly win rather than an ugly loss. The one bright side, though, Nick, is you know how you have to sometimes wait for that all-22 camera? Well, you didn't have to wait for this game. You could just study the film because the Bills and the Patriots had the whole team right there because we have no downfield threat. The Bills had everybody up there like, oh, look, the full team right there. That's good. That's good for the class picture. So I think our play calling leads a little bit to be desired, but I'm still feeling okay.
Well, listen, there's a lot of blame to go around, but Brandon, and you can wrap the show on this. This felt to me like a game that sticks with players. I think the Patriots know what a win there would have meant. What it would have meant to Buffalo's psyche, what it would have meant to the Patriots' psyche, what it would have meant in the standings. So even if you go kill the Jets next week, I feel like there's part of Cam's brain's like, oh my God, now we should be 500. Now we should be here. I worry about those lingering effects for the rest of the season for him, Brandon.
Yeah, he's been trying to get over the hump for the last couple weeks, right? To me, I chop it up to COVID. Before COVID struck this locker room, they were playing really well, and we were actually highlighting Cam every single day on the show. So to me, it's more about COVID hitting, but now it's time for Cam to actually hold on to the ball and get these wins so they can get back on track.
We got your Jets.
We got to go. Great show today.